Hello, everyone, and welcome to your very first workshop of the SCIP summer program with me, Phelan. So just a little bit about myself. I am a recently graduated biochemistry major with a minor from the PINK program, which is actually how I got introduced into the SCIP program, where I started off as a team leader, then a Python technical support staff, and now I'm working on this workshop with you all today as we cover some of the Python basics that you've worked on this past week. I'm so excited for you guys to continue on in this program because we have so much in store for you, and I genuinely feel like Python is a great way to conduct research that's in silico that can be combined with in vitro processes. So let's get started with our two objectives today, the first being string manipulation, and the second one, I'll show you how to get a little bit more creative with Python basics to generate a guessing game. I'll go ahead and minimize myself so you guys have more space to see on the screen. And okay. So I'm pretty sure everyone is familiar with the very first line of code that you all coded, which is hello world. It's a print function that has a string statement inside, and when you run it, it just prints out the phrase hello world. Well, as easy as that statement might seem, or that line of code might seem, I want to challenge you guys today to continue on and push a little bit harder with your Python basic codes and using strings. So one of the other things that you guys have learned is making variables and inputs. We'll go ahead and start off by generating a variable that says name. For this objective, you guys will all be creating an input. We'll be creating an input to take a user's name and then printing out a personalized statement or a personalized message for your teammates that showcases who you really are. So we have name as our first variable. And here we'll put in the input function and then a string for the prompt. Enter your name. Perfect. So I'll annotate this line of code to say, this is our input prompt. Perfect. Now let's work on the second variable, which will be the greeting. This will be our personalized message, and instead of typing out a full string of code that has our names, like the hello world statement, we're going to challenge ourselves by printing out a greeting or a phrase that uses the input we generated into the string. For example, I'll start off the first part of the sentence or the statement by saying, hey everyone, space. Then I'll use a plus sign, my variable, and another plus sign, and then finish off my string with is my name and coding is my game. All right. So the purpose of these plus signs is to conjoin the two strings together. Typically, when you have a string, you want it to be a full through sentence between two quotes. However, if you're asking your users or other people to input their name, you would have to conjoin two strings together to get the full statement. Okay. So let's look over our code. We have our name for the input, we enter your name, and then an annotation. And now we have our greeting that says, hey everyone, plus my name variable, plus is my name, and coding is my game. Okay, let's see how this runs. So I'll enter my name, Phelan. Oh, we forgot to put the most important part. The print statement for the greeting. Okay, let's run this again. Okay, perfect. Hey everyone, Phelan is my name and coding is my game. Cool. So why don't you guys take some time now to work on your own personalized greeting. You can set up the same way that I have, but why don't we personalize our statements just a little bit more towards ourselves, and then you can share those in the chat when you get the moment, and then we'll come back here. Alrighty guys, so now let's move on to our second task of this workshop, which is to create the guessing game. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the way the guessing game goes. One person chooses a number between a specified range and everybody else, us, guesses. Well, today the computer is going to be the person to choose the number between 1 and 10, and us as the users will be putting in input or input our guess so that the computer can tell us if we guess the same answer as it or if we're too high or too low. Okay, so let me move back over here to Google Lab. Alright, so our objectives are to generate a random number between 1 and 10 and ask the user to guess the number, then provide feedback on whether the guess is too high or too low until the user guesses the correct number. That sounds easy enough, right? So the first part of this is to import the random module. The random module is very important to this game because it enables the random function. The random function that we'll be using is called randint, which means random integer. And it has two arguments for the syntax, which is the start and the stop function. So the start and the stop will essentially be the boundaries of within the range that we want the computer to guess. For this case, we'll be using 1 and 10. So I'll say dash 1 and 10. So the random function, when we talk about range, is very peculiar because otherwise, when we talk about range, we put the range not only between different symbols, meaning brackets instead of parentheses, but we also have a different way of analyzing the data that we signify we want. So for the range, you'll typically see brackets for the syntax of start and stop. And I'll put these right here. All right. So the reason why I say this is peculiar is because when we normally talk about range, we're given a start and a stop to the computer. However, we only want the computer to analyze everything that's between the start and the stop. With the randint function, that range we're looking at is including the start and stop, meaning that it's inclusive instead of exclusive like the range. I'll show you an example here. So when I say randint, I want the computer to evaluate 1, 2, 3, and so on until 10. Everything inside. However, when I say range, I want the computer to look at everything between 1, so 1 on the outside, 2, 3, 4, and so on, until 9, because I also don't want the computer to evaluate the 10. Alright, so there you have the difference between randint range and just general range. So let's set up a variable for the random number that we want the computer to choose. We'll say random number equals, and now we'll use our randint function. Random dot randint, rand integer 1, 10. All right, let me put a space here. Perfect. So I'm going to add an annotation on here so we can keep track of what we're doing. We'll say the generated number is stored in the random int, or the random number variable. Okay, cool. So now we know that the computer will be guessing between the numbers 1 and 10, and it could be 1 and it could be 10. Now, the next part is to generate a variable for the guess, and much like we did for the string manipulation part, we're going to generate an input that we want for the guess because we, as the users, will be inputting a guess the same way we input our name when we created the string. So I'll say guess equals int for integer, input, and guess the number between 1 and 10. Space. Perfect. Alright, so you might be a little confused as to this int value or function that I imported into this part. So the reason why I put the int here is because we want the computer to have us guess an integer, or at least read an integer, meaning a number. If you look at the function that I built, if we read inside to out, we can say that it says we are guessing the number between 1 and 10 as the input, which is a number value or an integer. This is important because we don't want the computer to be confused, and we don't want our users to be confused. If they import a character letter, then it will return an error because that's not what the computer or the game was built to do. So it's important that we specify we want an integer, and if we cannot have an integer, then it will not work. Alright, so I'm gonna comment this out for now because now we're actually gonna build the game and then we'll import our guess into the game model. So something you guys will be looking at in the next week is called conditionals and Boolean expressions or concepts. So the importance of Boolean expressions is to evaluate if a condition is true or false. You'll learn more about the expression next week, but for today we're just gonna focus on the while statements. So while statements. Actually, I'll go here and so I can give you some more information about it. So the importance of the while statement is to evaluate and also regulate the flow of a model. When we think while something is happening, some other thing should be happening as well, or either later on down the line. And this way it could be looked at as a moderator for our model. Today we'll be using a while statement like a while loop. And the reason why I say loop is because I want you guys to have unlimited tries to guess the correct number instead of just guessing once or twice or 3 times. So I'll say while true, colon, and now I'm on the next line. So you'll see there's a small indent here where I won't be typing anything, which is key to this model. The reason why it's indented is because everything that we'll be typing next has to be encapsulated into the model, so to speak. So that means everything that I'll be writing has to happen while my model is true. So let's go ahead and import our guess into the model. This will be the first line under because we want everything to be based upon this statement, the guess. Alright. So in other words, you can think of this as while we are guessing, or while the computer is asking us to guess, and then the following conditions that we'll set. So conditionals are important because they're like if or else statements, which are essentially the rules of our game. The first if that we'll make is the if guess is equal to the random number that the computer generated, and I'll put another colon. So you see it's indented once again. This means that if the guess is equal to the random number, we want the model to print congratulations. Oops. You've guessed the correct answer. Cool. Oh, let's take the slash out. Here we go. Perfect. So now if we guess the correct answer, the model will return to us only congratulations, you've guessed the correct answer. So there's 3 ways that the computer can return a statement to us, and that's if the answer is correct. The second one is if the answer is too high, or the third one is if the answer is too low. Let me scroll down. Okay. So because we have our if guess is correct and we encapsulated that we want to print out a statement, let's backtrack by setting our indentation back so that we have another rule set and it does not fall under the if guess is correct. We'll say elif guess is less than random number, colon, we'll print too low. Try again. Okay, awesome. So now we have a conditional or a rule that it says elif, which means else if the guess is less than the random number, it'll print out the statement too low, let's try again. Now let's backtrack again to set our third condition. And this one will be else. So the else is different from if and elif, especially because if you look at what we have so far, we have the guess random number, which means that we got the correct number. We have the guess if the number is too low, or the too low guess, then we have a statement that will print out, which means that if we have everything before the actual guess, or before the correct answer and the actual correct answer, the only thing left to guess is too high. So let's print out else, print too high. Try again. All right. So now let's review what we've written so far. We have our while statement, which means while we're asking our user to guess, or while the computer is asking us to guess, if we guess a random number and it's equal, or if we guess a number and it's equal to the random number, this means we guessed the same number as the computer generated random number. It'll print out congratulations. Let's add another annotation for the guessing if the number is too low. If we guess a number with a value that is lower than the number the computer randomly generated, it'll say too low, try again. Now, if we also have the else statement, which means everything that's too high, if we guess any number with a value higher than the randomly generated number, it'll print too high, try again. Okay, now everything with our syntax looks great. All of our indentation is correct. We have our print statements that are all set up. Let's go ahead and run this. All right, cool. So our input is working. Everything until the while true guess is working. Now it's asking us to pick a number. I'll pick 8. Too high, I'll try again. Let's go with 5. Too low. Okay, so this means it's either 6 or 7. I'm gonna go with lucky number 7. Ah, perfect! I've gotten it. So, as you can see, it'll keep asking me to loop over and guess the correct answer, no matter how many times that I do it, right? One way to fix this is to add a break after we've guessed the correct answer. That way, we don't have to keep guessing or be stuck in this endless while loop. So, after this print congratulations, I'll backtrack and include a break. Break essentially tells the computer to stop the loop. Now, let's stop it manually and let's start over again. This time it's going to give us a random different number. And don't worry if your random number that you have to guess is different from your other classmates. Since we're all on other computers and we all have our own notebook collabs, it's very unlikely that even with a range that's small as 1 to 10, we would get the same numbers. I'll guess 5. Oh, 4. Let's see. Let's run this. I'll guess 8. Too high, 2. Too low, 6. Too high, 7. 5. 4. Oh, cool. This took me so long this time. Okay. So yeah, the number is 4, and it looks like the loop has stopped, so it did read our break. All right. Great job, guys. So I hope you had fun today. I can't wait for you guys to continue on the course and meet with some of you to talk to you in another workshop or join you in another class. I hope the rest of the summer goes great for you, and please feel free to reach out to any of your team leaders or teaching assistants because we would love to be helpful for you guys, okay? All right. So I'll end the workshop here. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.